Hi team, welcome back to the continuation day 3 for our QTP December 1st training batch. So let's take a quick peek at what we did in day 1 and day 2, and then we're going to continue from there on. Alright team? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the QTP D1 folder and open the Excel which we were using earlier and look at what we have done so far. Alright team? Now, what we had done is we were going to build a data-driven framework from ground up, and here is our planning. What do we intend to do? Everything is out here. So the test plan, scenario, data, we've done major part of it. So we put 75%. We've identified the objects, then we've added them to the object repository and gave them some logical names. We started to write a basic code for our test scenario. What is it that the application, what are we going to do? Like entering the values in the edit fields, clicking on the calculate button and so on, right? After that, we said, let's start to use VBScript, start to create the test parameters, variables, learn to debug our code, learn to put breakpoints, and we also started to work a little bit on the loops and conditions. We haven't come to the condition statements yet, I believe, but we have come to loops using the for loop, and that is what will let our test run multiple times, but not everything, a specific portion of our test. And that portion is defined by where my first statement starts and where my next statement is. Right, team? So this is what we have done so far. We have declared some variables and we started to use those values as we went along. Now, there is a small issue, team. There's an issue because you've noticed that I had a system crash yesterday. We couldn't have the session because of that yesterday. Now when I've started to work with QTP, I've noticed that my QTP has suddenly stopped recognizing anything to do with my IE browser. For example, if I open my IE browser after I've opened QTP and I go and use my object spy on any of these elements, it shows me window, win object and so on. So ideally, what I've done is, as part of your welcome pack, there is a document called as QTP and Windows 7. What this document tells us, team, is how do you work with QTP along with the Windows 7, all the configuration changes. Despite having done this and restarting my machine, it is not working. The alternate then is for me to reinstall QTP, but I didn't find sufficient time to do that so far. So alternately, what can I do? If I run this test, it will fail. It will fail not when working with VBScript statements where I have variables and so on, not when launching my browser, but when I try to do anything on the browser, on the application. The reason being, these are independent of the application. All this code that you see is all independent of the application. Only the specific objects, once we start pointing to it, QTP must recognize them. If QTP cannot recognize them, it cannot work with it. Alright. So if I run this test, it will fail, and that is going to be the issue for us. So what do I do right now? Is this something that I planned to work with? No. Since this was unexpected, now here is my current D route out of it, so that we still continue to do a productive session. And what I intend to do, team, is let's talk about the application itself. The application, mortgage calculator, whatever we have here. Let's go there. A very simple application, right? So if I go here and I talk about what is it that we are intending to do. What I'm intending to do is, if I enter some information out here, 20,000, let's say 10,000 miles starting, and let's say we put about 50 gallons of gas. The gas cost right now 3.59, and I click on calculate. This is what the user performs. At the end of it, what we get are the results. Okay. So when I add these objects, for example, this text to the repository, it will give me the entire text. Right. Now I'm saying that let's anticipate that if this code was working correctly, I would have got this text. Have we evaluated the get arrow property method totally? No, that's where we closed our last session. And that's where we wanted to continue from. So now I'm saying I don't want these sets of codes to work. So this entire section, I don't want QTP to execute anything on it. So what should I do? Delete it? No, we're going to comment them using Control M as a shortcut. Now that I've commented my code, I will assume that I get a specific text from my application. This is the text, okay, as an output. So what is happening basically, team? These are very important concepts to understand. Once you know these fundamentals, very easy for us to move forward, team. From QTP, you are sending inputs to where? Into the application. Using what? Using how to identify the objects, and then using methods like set or click and so on. Once you do this, the application starts behaving in a certain manner depending on what you've done using QTP. Once you did that, my getArrow property is one of the ways that I can capture information back and get it back into QTP. Okay, so when I get it back into QTP, what do I do? When I'm sending the information, I put them into variables. When I'm getting the information back, even then I will put it into new variables. Okay, so what is the information I'm getting it? I'm getting the information kind of 200 miles per gallon. How do I capture that? Assuming that this line had worked correctly, we didn't test it yet. I will say my variable gas miles equals whatever text I see coming out here, this whole text team. Okay, now this is my output. All right, so at this point, let's assume that this is where the output is. So I'm going to save this differently, calc 5, and continue from there. What is the whole point of doing this exercise? The whole point is I take a set of input data, I put that input data into the application, I get the results out here, and then I compare it based on if I enter these values, what I got from the application, is that correct or not? If it is correct, I put a pass here. If not, I'll put a fail out here. Okay, the execute and time taken, we will develop it. For now, I'm going to hide it. That is the intent. So where are we taking input from? These are the 4 variables. Right now, constant. Okay, the only thing that I'm changing out here is price. I'm saying each time I will start with the price value being 4 and keep on adding a value of whatever I give here. When I say I is 5 to 6, the first time we get into the for loop, I value will be 5. So my new price will be 4 plus 5, that is 9. When I come back again, what will be the new value? It will be something else, right? So to evaluate this, what I will do is I'll put some print statement saying that price is ampersand V price. This is before we did anything in this loop. Then I will do the same thing after. Okay, price is before and then after. Alright, team, that's my statements right now. And I have V gas miles. I'm saying this is coming out from the application. So let's do something like that. VA gas miles, that is application gas miles. What is the formula that the application is taking to do this calculation? Okay, what is the formula that the application is taking to do this calculation? Okay, app calc through our script. I'm saying let's do the same calculation as the application is doing, then we should be able to compare it. Okay, so I will have a new variable called VQ gas miles, basically my QTP gas miles, equals what? The way this is calculated is the difference between my end and start miles divided by my total gas, right? That is the calculation for it. Okay, so how do I do it? What is there in my V end miles? 14,000, right? And then V start miles 12,000. So if I do V end miles plus V start miles and divide this whole thing by V gas, what will I get? So I'm going to print saying that gas miles from app is ampersand VA gas miles. Okay. Then the same thing I'll say gas miles from QTP formula is V Q gas miles. Okay. Now, yeah, you're right. I've deliberately tried and put some errors into my code so that you understand the logics in which things work. Now, when I try and run this code team, will this differ anytime? Look at this. Where am I using V price? Understand the logics team. These things are doing a specific functionality. They're working in a specific manner. If I give 3 inputs or 4 inputs, okay, and I just take this input and I take this input and I take this input, using these 3 I have a formula or a calculation that does a process and gives me an output. If this is not being used, if I keep changing this value, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. It will continue to do the same. Okay, so that is why if you notice my script right now, the only thing that I'm changing in this loop has got nothing to do with what I'll get as output, because V price is the one changing and I am not using V price anywhere. My VA gas miles is constant. This is also only based on end miles, start miles and gas. So far so good team. Any questions before I do a run to see how the output looks? Since I'm not doing anything with the browser, I will comment this too. Any questions before I move forward team? So now let's do a full run. I'm not doing a debug run or a slow run, just doing a total run. And since it's just VBScript code, here's where it will fade. Now here is a different issue altogether that will come up with. Line 36 is still trying to get executed. It's still in running. Why? It's trying to close what? A browser. Where is the browser? I have already closed that. There is no more browser open for QTP to recognize. In fact, that statement either way wouldn't have worked. Now the issue is that now it will say that it cannot identify the object IE of class browser. Verify that this object is present or displayed in the application. The application itself is not present, and that's why it says this. Okay, so now I'm going to stop this test. Doesn't matter. That anyway I wanted to comment this line. We're doing nothing with the application. It's just VBScript statements at the moment. So what did I do? I said price is before. This is the first time. Now 4. Then I added 5 to it. It became 9. Gas miles from app is 200 miles per gallon. Is this what we gave team out here? Yes. Whatever I gave, that is exactly what I've got here. Now, how about gas miles from app QTP is? What did I get for that? Gas miles from QTP is a very, very large number. Why is this giving me this number? All I'm doing is I'm adding 2 numbers and I'm subtracting it. What is the cause for this error team? Anyone know the reason why this is happening? You can use the chat to put your answers. The reason this is happening is not because my formula is incorrect, that my V end miles minus V start miles. No, that is not the reason for it. Nipindra, you're right. Brahmanand, you're right too. What happens team is it is all because of the data types of this variables. Okay, it's a very, very important concept that you have to remember, and this is where I'm introducing this to you. Let's now do the same thing as a debugger. Go step by step and see exactly what is happening in our code. So go to debug and click step into. Now we will go one line at a time. At this point, make sure your debug view is up, and if you don't see that at the bottom, click on view and select debug viewer. Then you'll be able to see this. Now let's go to variables. Once you go to variables, what you see here is as the variables keep getting added as part of the script, you'll start to see them out here. So V and miles value is in quotes 14,000 and type is string. What is a string team? Any text, anything you give in quotes is string. You give characters, you give alphabets or numbers, it becomes a string. So now I have 4 strings, different values, different names. Good. That is what I expected. Now as soon as I execute line 10, will something come up out here? Yes, because there's a new variable being created out here called I. That is the variable which will let us go as a loop basis in this. So now I, do you see the value? It is integer. Okay. What is the difference between a string data type and an integer data type? The difference is string is in quotes, has alphanumeric or whatever. It can be just a number, doesn't matter. If it has quotes, it is considered a string. How about the next one? Integer, a number that doesn't have any quotes to it, just a number. And it also doesn't have any decimal points to it. Once you have a decimal points aligned to it, it becomes something called as a double or a long, as you continue to see. Okay. Now, if I run this, what is happening? V price value is 5. So V price right now is 4. So price is before 4, correct? Now what happens to V price team? Did you see this? It has changed from being a integer into a type double. It is no longer a string. It's changed from being a string to integer. Why? When I used a plus operation, what it did, earlier V price had a value of 4, but it was in strings. Then I had an integer value of 5, and it didn't have it, and it was an integer. When I used plus out here, it thought that I'm trying to add a number and a string, and luckily the string had a number in it, so it automatically converted that text or string into a number and then did that operation as addition. Okay, now you will see the value coming out here. What will be the data type of this team? VA gas miles. Once it comes here, it has got a number, so will it be an integer? No, it's also got decimals. Will it be a double? But it is the whole thing in quotes, so it's going to be a string. Now that's what you see out here. How about out here now? So ideally speaking, this is a string. What is V and miles at this point on line 31? What is V and miles? 14,000 string. So if I add V start miles 12,000, which is a string, what should happen ideally? What it will do is it will take 14,000 plus 12,000, 26,000. So that should be the first formula plus. When I gave in brackets, I'm saying take this whole thing and use the divide sign to divide by the gas. How much is the gas? 40 gallons. So if I divide this, where's the divide? Okay, there you go. By 40, what is the value again? 650. What am I getting right now? VQ gas miles is a large number. Why is it doing it? When I did a plus operation on a string and a number, it converted that string automatically into a number and added it. But when I use a plus sign on two strings, what it does is it joins them or concatenates them together. So V and miles was 14,000. So what it basically did is it said 14,000, but instead of hitting a plus sign, it added the next number, which is 12,000, and then divide that with 40. And that is the value that it is showing up out here. All right. So what does that mean? If I need to do a mathematics operations on two strings which have values as numbers, I have to convert them. It's very simple. Logic is out here. Oops. Where's my notepad? There are 3-4 different main data types. Okay, string. What is the difference? Quotes, anything, number or text or whatever. Then I have integers. Okay, integers are numbers, but they don't have decimals. And then other thing is, main thing is double. Okay, these three data types are more than enough. Again, any number, whatever we want, but it has a decimal value added to it. Okay, that is the prime difference. Now, if these three data types are there, string, integer, okay, SI and double, okay, if I have to do any mathematic operations, I have to make sure they're of the same data types. If I don't convert this data type into a number, I use a plus sign, it's a problem. If I use a divide sign, it's a problem. Out here, automatically it converted. not here, here, okay, because it used the plus sign almost as simple as this ampersand sign. We're joining things together. Now what we will do is we will convert them. To convert them, it is not just because it is working correct, leave it alone. No. What is the correct thing to do? V price is 4. So if I say cint V price, what this statement cint does, team, is it takes this value and converts that into an integer for me. And then I starts with 5 and then goes to 6, or let's say even 8, for example. Now what will it do? It will keep on adding 5 to the old value, then 6, then 7, and so on. So this is automatically an integer. Integer and integer, you do a plus, it will give you the value correctly. Okay, right? So this is the exact thing that we need to do, team. This is exactly how we need to perform. What is the right thing to do and perform it? How do you know cint does this? Team, very, very important thing, I'm not sure if I mentioned, is the F1 key on your keyboard. When you hit F1 key on that specific area of your text, you will get the help documentation from QTP as to what it means. Cint, what it does is returns an expression that has been converted to variant of subtype integer. It's a correct statement, but a confusing statement. The pure English to it is if you pass a number which has decimals, it will round it off and give you the integer. If you pass a text that has numbers, it will give you the integer value without decimals. That is what cint does, convert to integer. Number, no decimals. Out here, what should I do then? V end miles, what is it? 14,000, which is an integer, it doesn't have any decimals. Now if I say cint, what am I saying? Before you add them, you convert them into integers. How about vgas? Continues to be a string, right? But now I'm saying let's use the integer version of this vgas. Alright, now let's run this code and see what happens. Again, we're going to put a breakpoint instead of running everything, and I'm going to hit a run. That way I can debug from the breakpoint. So it stopped at the breakpoint. We have print log which is old, close that. Now let's start from the beginning. So price is before 4, then V price is now, old was 4, now it's 9, 200 miles per gallon. Now let's see what comes out. I expect at least that VQ gas miles is not that huge number. 650. So are we saying it gives us 650 miles per gallon? When you're writing your code for the first time, team, always try and verify this. So if it's 14,000 by 12,000, sorry, oops, see, 14,000, that's the issue with the manual thing, plus 12,000 and divide this by 40, I get 650, correct. So whatever I gave, it is doing correctly. That is exactly what I expected. Now let's see print. So it gives me 200 miles per gallon and 650. This is interesting. Okay. So, but what did I give on the application? I gave some other values. So my formula was not supposed to be end miles plus start miles. It's a subtraction of these two. Okay. When I now subtract these two, this will automatically give me the correct values. So how did I get 200 miles per gallon? Let me quickly try and reproduce the same thing, team. What are the values that I used? Okay. There you go. What did I use? 20,000, right? And 10,000. And how many miles per? What did I give here? Okay. There you go. These are the values that I gave him. So I'm going to correct this. 20,000, 10,000, 50 gallons, and 3.59. Okay. Now, if I execute it, now let's see how it will come out. Anything to do with the application right now? No, we're still not working anything to do with the application. So at this time, I want to see 200 miles per gallon, which is constant, which is not changing, and the same thing coming out here. Let's see if this is correct or not. So price, what do I expect, team? I expect to see 3.59 coming here, and then I expect to see 3.59 plus 5, 8.59. So let's continue the run. Let it do all the entire run for the entire combination. So I got 3.59 plus 5. I'm supposed to get 8.59. Why did I get 9? Then gas miles from app is 200 miles. QTP is 200. Correct. This is the exact value. So now I should be able to compare these two. I know this has got more text into it than this, but at least I have corresponding values. So now I should be able to go and compare. How about this old value is 9, 15. So what went wrong? Number 1, 3.59. Why am I getting 3. Plus 5 should be 8.59. Why am I getting 9 out here, team? The reason being, when I converted something to an integer, it will lose the decimal places. Okay, I'm going to comment this old code. So 3.59, if I have to convert it into a number, it is becomes 4 because that's the closest integer number. So cint is to convert a value into integer. Alternately, we use c double, and that will convert a number, a text into a number as long as it can, and give as is value. So now with this change, if I run, at least I hope to see some decimal values there. Let's see. Now I see 3.59 became 8.59, 8.59 becomes 14.59, and so on. So the cint or cdbl will convert, if possible, a text which is there into, or any other number, into an integer or a double. You want decimals, then you use doubles. So it is your requirement, team, that you have to convert into the logic of your code. All right. So assuming that this works correctly, now how do I compare it at script level if this value and this value are the same or not? To do that, we have something called as an if statement. If statement is something like, if something is true, then do this. If something is false, do something else. That is the concept, team. Okay. Now, if I say VA gas miles equals VQ gas miles, then I will say print both values are the same, else print, or rather let's say pass here. We know what we are saying by pass or fail, right? Or else print fail. So what am I saying? If the value here is the same as the value here, then we'll say it's a pass or a fail. Okay, and instead of printing these statements here, let's print this out here inside the if statement. Yeah. Again, I'm trying to do something very deliberately, which is a very obvious error out here. All right, team. So let me tell you why all this is required. One second. Okay, there you go. So now, having done this, how does this if statement work? The way if statement works is it's got only 4 words. If, then a then, and an else, and an end if. The way it works is, if I give a condition here, what is the condition? True or a false is the output of a condition. And that output, true or false, is actually called as a Boolean, and that's also a data type. Okay. The whole thing that I've highlighted, team, will get replaced by one word, true or false, one of these words. If this gets replaced by true, in the sense, if this is true, the left side and right side is correct, then it will do this. If this is not true, then it will do this. Okay, that is what this code does. Why am I printing these gas miles after I've printed a pass or a fail? So that when it says pass, I can see why it said pass, and when it says fail, I can also see why it said fail. Okay, so save this and let's do a run and see what comes out. I expect it to be a fail, team. Why do I expect it to be a fail? Because I'm comparing 200 miles per gallon with 200, and that is the issue. Are they same? You're comparing absolutely two different things. Not necessary because the values. So you have to precisely tell, I have to compare 200 with 200 or 300 with 300. And that's the point. So now let's see. First, I get a fail and I get gas miles from app is 200 miles per gallon. But how about gas miles from QTP is blank. So what does that mean, Tim? Something has gone wrong with my formula here, correct? Why is it not giving me anything out here? And that is again a attribute to a human error, right? Variables are something that you give values, you give names to them, right? That is your code. We can make errors just like anyone else, correct? And for example, here if you notice, I put a breakpoint and now do a debug run. You will know exactly why this debug run is so important. At this point, what do I see? V and miles V. So I expected to see 200 coming up and 200 miles per gallon, correct? That is the value is here. Now what is happening? Let's see. When I do this, VA gas miles is this 200 miles per gallon. Is it equal to 200? No, it is not. So it will go into the else part. It will print fail, correct, expected. Then what was there in A gas miles? 200 miles per gallon. Good, expected. What was there in VQ gas miles? Empty. But I have VQ gas miles as 200. Where did this new variable come from altogether? And that is the issue with the way we use variables. And hence, when we want to use variables, team, what we have to do is use something called as a dim statement. So far, what I did is I said, I have a variable. Let's use a equal to sign and put some value into it. Either a number or text, doesn't matter. We're putting some value into it, whatever application is. So dim statement tells me that if I want to use variables, use dim to define it. I want to use div v end miles. I want to use v start miles. I want to use v gas. I want to use v price. Okay, that is a good methodology of coding thing. It's a good practice that you have to follow. So I'm using 4 variables here. I'm saying dim statement, what it will do is it will create the variables first. Then you start putting information into it. When the dim statement comes up, what QTP does is it creates memory space. It gives it a specific name, whatever you want, and it doesn't give anything here. It's blank. Okay. Once it executes that statement, it puts a value into it. So dim statement just creates the variable, puts the name to it, and just that's it. It creates a memory space for it. Now I have to define everything using dim statement. So I have dim I because I need it. Then I have dim V A gas miles. Then I have dim V Q gas miles. Okay. The reason this dim statement is important, team, look at it. When someone reads your code, at the beginning they will see that, hey, there are variables created. Probably these have some essence. And now look at this. So easy for us to understand. Inputs from the application. To the application. These are the inputs. Then these are my loop variable. I'm using I out there, so I'm saying it's a loop variable. Here are verification variable. So I'm also able to classify what are there. So someone comes in, looks at it, so that, oh, inputs to the variables is out here. Good. And then loop variables are out here. Good. Verification variables are out here. Good. So now when you go through the code, you already know what we are working on. And then you actually are going forward with what to use, where to use them. At this point, team, my problem is still not solved. This was absolutely optional. What was my problems? That I gave a misspelled GASS miles here. Correct? That is the problem. Q gas miles. Okay, sorry. You're right. I have to give V2 gas miles. So if I just do this definition, it doesn't change the way my code works. However, and this was optional. Even if I had commented this, my code would have worked. Right? Then what is the difference? The difference is now I can use a concept called as option explicit. The reason this is important is it says mandatory now to declare, no, these are not global variables, now to declare variables before we use them. In the sense, if I want to use any variables in my script, you make sure that you follow the right practice and a good approach to use dim to define it. If you want to define everything using one dim, or separate them consequentially so that you know which one belongs to what, and there are specific classifications so that it's easy for someone to maintain it. You may come back to this code after 3 months. When you come back, you want to be able to understand what's happening. Okay, so that is the reason you put these things out here, team. Okay, how you name your variables, how you do this, how you go and name your objects in the repository, all these things are important. Option explicit says that unless you use a dim and define the variables, you cannot use them anywhere. Now, having done this, if I just do a run on this, let's see what happens. Variable is undefined. Why? VQ gas miles. Why did this come here? A human error, manual error. When I was coding, I did an error. But instead of printing out everything and then giving me the headache to go and do a debug run and find out why, what is causing, it tells me that, hey, you misspelled a variable. Are you sure this is the variable you wanted to use? No. And this run error, team, is also extremely important for your success. Now let's click on stop. In the sense, let's stop the test to run anymore and go make those corrections to our code. Understand that? One of the importances for option explicit is it's a good practice, because any misspells or you're not using correct information somewhere, it will prompt you, it will give you error even before it gives you the results. Okay. Second thing is, when you're coming back for maintenance, it becomes very important for you to look. But if you notice, team, out here I'm not saying is this a data type string or an integer or a double or what. No. VBScript team is a very lean programming language. It is not very complex. Okay. So it doesn't really emphasize that we have to declare a variable type and all that, unlike your Java or other programming languages which are very strict in it. The reason is this is used for much more simpler applications, simpler programming and so on. That is the reason we need to keep this. Now, having done these changes, let's do another run to see what we get as an output. I still expect fail, but at least I know that I'm getting values or not. I changed it, right? The gas miles. Okay, save this, run. Let's see, variable is undefined. See, I didn't change it here. I changed it everywhere, but not here. Okay, so done. Now let me close this print logs which came up and do a run again. I still expect fail. I'm not expecting pass to come out, but at least is it comparing the correct things with the correct things? Yes, and it is right. My code is working correctly. Now, what is my next problem, team? What is my next thing? What do I need to do? I actually want to see if it is 200, how do I get the 200 out of this 200.00 out of this whole string? And for that, we will use a command called as a split string. How will I use split string? So if I say a variable, I'll just give a short form to VHGM. What should I do before I write further? This is a new variable that I want to create. What should I do before I move forward? Remember something that I've just done. Correct. You want to make sure that we declare it. Where should I declare it? It is still verification variable, so I'll put it here and say VAGM. Because we've used option explicit. If you don't use option explicit, even if you misspell or you don't declare it, doesn't matter. It will not let you do anything with it. Option explicit will make it mandatory to do it. Now, having saved this, it's a problem. This is what is this error in syntax? Is saying something is wrong with the VBScript. It told me line 30. So now I go here and I say I use a split command, and I talk about the split command. What split does is what split does, what it gives out, I will talk to you. But first let's see what split does. Split will split this whole string. But where will it split? Will it split it here or here or here and so on? So when you say split and open this, the first thing is you give the expression. Expression is what do you want to split? I want to split V gas miles. Okay, comma. The next one is optional and it says delimiter. Delimiter is basically saying what is that recognition where I want you to see the split. So if I say space, it will split it at that space. Okay, so if I give comma, open quotes, space, end quotes, I have provided the inputs to it that split this whole string at this space as a delimiter. So what will happen? It will split it here, then again it will split here, then again it will split here. So what should come out, team? So 200 miles per gallon and the delimiter is space, correct? These are the spaces are our delimiters. So when I say split this at that space, it will give me 4 values. 2 as the first value, M as the second value, P as the third value, and G as the fourth value. Now it gives me 4 different values, team. So if I want this value, where did I put these values? I put it into a variable. But then a variable, if I say variable A, VA, it can hold only one value. I can't have 3 or 4 values into it. Then if I say variable B, I can have another value and so on. So what will split do? How will it give me an output then? And what it uses at that point is called as your arrays, team. Okay. Why arrays? The good part about arrays, team, is that let's say I have 20 variables. Okay. I have 20 different variables. 1, 2, 3, blah, 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 19, 20. Okay. And this has got a name to it. This has got a name. Everything has got a name and they've got values into it. Okay. But the thing is, they're stored in different places. If I want this value, or if I want this value, or if I want this value, I call it by that name. Okay. Now, array is such a thing that I'll still have 20 values. Okay. I'll still have 20 values. But the difference is that there is only one name to it. And that is your V array or whatever name you give to typically your variable. Okay. Name is common. But what if I want the first value? I say V array 0. That points to the first value in that order. Then the second value will come in 1. Instead of 0, you give V add 1 in brackets and so on. The difference, team, is when you declare variables, QTP will store it in different memory spaces. And the way it identifies it using that variable name. Okay, team, I know if someone listening to it for the first time and it is programming and a little bit of arrays and so on, absolutely do not worry. The reason is very simple. These are the simplest things to learn as long as we repeat it 2 or 3 times. Go back, watch this video. Go back, repeat this whole session. Understand what I'm doing again. And then you will automatically be able to figure out. So with these arrays, the difference is you, instead of creating 20 variables, I'll create one array variable and put 20 items into it. So that way I have only one address. It is like you have an independent house, a single family home, or you live in an apartment. When you live in an apartment, you also have to say the apartment number on the street address, correct? If you live on in a single family home, you just give your street address and that holds the entire thing. And now I give what is the name of that apartment, what is the street address for it, and what is that apartment number. And everything is stored one after the other. So if a postman or a delivery boy has to come and look at your address, he's at least going in the order. Okay, here is A123. If I have to go to A125, I just have to go a couple of more houses, I should be there. So that is how it does. They are stored sequentially. Depending on that number, you are able to access. That is the logic behind it. Now, how do we use it? When I say split, and now how does split work? I told you practically. Now theoretically, from a definitions point, do F1. It will show you exactly how it works. So it says split, returns zero based one dimensional array. See, look at the complexity it does. But it's a correct statement. Absolutely, it's the perfect statement for it. But for a beginner like us, it's a little over one dimensional array. Only thing that we've heard right now is an array. One dimensional, two dimensional, not yet. Now it says expression delimiter. These are the arguments that we pass into it. But if you go down and look at this, my string value is VBScript x is x fun. Now it says my array split what? My string, where x, and then it gave two more parameters which I don't even know. If I need it, I know I'll go to it. Count and compare, something like that. Now my array in bracket 0 contains VBScript. My array 1 in bracket 0 contains is. Why? The delimiter is x, and that is the reason. And the last one is fun. So 0, 1, 2. Now I know what I want. So if I do this and I say print, first is ampersand VAGM. That is the name of my array. And in the brackets, I'll give 0 out here. Okay. And then I'll say second is VAGM 1. It starts with value 0. Remember that thing. That's the only thing that can look different, ideally speaking, and the other one. Okay. Now let's run this. Do I have VAGM out here? Good. Now let's see how we what we get when we execute this. Too many print statements. This we have tested. Why do I need so many print statements, team? Because as the code is running, what is it that I'm getting? That is my intent. Okay. So hopefully this will compare correct. So I'm commenting all those unnecessary print statements for me right now. So run this. Okay, very quick. Why is it doing? So the first is 200.00. Second is miles. Third is per. 200 miles per. Where is gallon? What happened to gallon, team? Or gallons rather, or gallon. Yeah, it's per gallon. It's not per gallons, right? Where is my gallon? It is in the fourth element in that array. So if I want the gallon also, print and say fourth is VAGM 3. Now if I run it, I'll get the new results. And see how quickly the scripts run. As long as it's got just those VBScript statements, your code doesn't take long. That is the reason, team, if you see, depending on the complexity of the application, when you're launching, for example, even QTP, it has to run a series of codes in the backend. And that's why it takes a certain amount of time to run. Now I got 200 miles per gallon, blah, blah, blah. Why did I even do all this? I did it so that I get what I want, and I want this. So here now I want to compare VQ gas miles with not VA gas miles. Instead, sorry, instead I want it to be compared with VAGM. Is that correct? Now I'm saying let's compare it with VAGM with VQ gas miles. One is my formula. The second is what I hopefully will get from the application. So if this and this are correct, then it will print. Is this a correct statement, team? I'm referring to the apartment number, but I'm not, sorry, I'm referring to the street address. But if I don't know the apartment number, then what? Where is that? In the first one. And that's what I'm going to put here and say open brackets 0 open brackets. Now the next thing, okay, let's save this and run this and see. So what do I expect in pass or a fail? And here is where you need to use either print statements or a debug. Let's use a debug instead of this. Fail. I'm expecting a pass. Let's see. Okay, let's see. I got 200 miles per gallon. Now do you see VAGM created, team, at this point? And it says array of variant. Now if you click on the plus sign, it will give you the values in those arrays. Do you see this? 200 and 200. Now let's compare. Fail. Why did I get a fail? I expected it to pass. Why did it fail? What is there in my VQ gas miles 200? What is there in VAGM 200? Then what is the problem? The problem is this is a string and this is a double. You cannot compare two different data types so simply. What should I do? Convert them back into one data type. It is like comparing apples with oranges. So I'll convert this to string. Actually, it's all, in fact, already string, doesn't matter. CSTR converts some things to string. Now, I will convert this also to string. Team, these are fundamental. These are the most important concepts. And remember, we're in day 3. So if I'm going slow, yes, and I didn't get that in the message because I know, but these are fundamentally very important concepts. Now let's see, 200, 200. When I do this, what should happen here? Actually, what should happen here, team? This 200 should change to string and it should then compare. Did 200 change to string? No. Did this change to string? No. This is already string, so it remained to be string, but still says fail. Number 1 question. Why didn't VQ gas miles change to string? Anyone, team? Why didn't VQ gas miles change to string? I said convert to string. CSTR, if I do F1 on it, it will show you, it will convert that variable into type string. So if you give a specific like this one and you say convert this to string, it will give you this whole thing in quotes. Why didn't it convert it to string? Yeah, I'll come to CDB now. Look at the logic in this thing. So this is a concept. So no answers as to why it is not converted to a string? Alright, let me explain this. The way this works is, I have a variable. Okay, let's say this is V1. There is, let's say, value 10. Okay, in quotes. Okay. Now, what is this data type, team, for V1? String, correct? Now, if I don't have these quotes, what is this data type? Integer, correct? If I say V1 equals convert to string V1, then what it does is it converts this into string and then puts it back into V1. Okay? And then puts it back into V1. If I say V2 equals this, what it does is it keeps this as 10, but it creates then a new variable called V2. And that variable will be a string 10. Okay? Unless I say update my old value, it will not update using an equal to sign. If I say V1 equals to CSTR V1, then it will change. If I don't do that, it will only take the value from it, change it and use it. Where am I using it? Into V2. So out here, I'm only using the value in V gas miles, converting it into the string, and this whole thing is now compared with this string. But I'm not using an equal to sign other than the if condition to take that value and put it somewhere else. That is not what I'm doing. And that is the reason it is not comparing it correctly. Okay, it is not changing the time. But why is it not still comparing it? So the values will go correctly. It is both are strings right now, but one is 200.00, the other is 200 only. So if you want to compare it using a specific way, type where decimals can also be there, then instead of this, use if convert this numbers temporarily to double and then run this. Okay, so now when I run this code, let's look at what comes out. Team, am I making sense as to what I'm trying to explain the whole thing? Very important fundamental concepts about variables, parameters and everything. Now you get a pass. You get a pass every time because in fact the same thing. But the reason it is because It is now converting 200.00 with 200.00. Old values as is we didn't touch. We took that value out of it here using the name, then converted it and used it. I didn't update the old values. I kept it as is. Just took the value and then converted. I didn't convert this. I took the value of it and then converted it. Team, making sense? Now what we have done is we are ready to now go and perform things on the application. All I have to do is make my QTP work to interact with the application, and when I do that run, it will automatically start taking new values from the output and comparing and getting the values and doing it. So my script, the skeleton is ready. I just have to now make it work. That's what we're going to do tomorrow, team. So any questions please so far? Sorry, I've been extending at least a couple of minutes every day. I apologize for that. We'll try and curtain it to 7:30, especially because a lot of people on the East Coast. What is the difference between stop and debug button in the pop window? Which stops up? Okay. So I'll explain. Rajiv, can you keep that question for tomorrow for me? I will start with showing you both the options. Thank you. Team, any other questions, please? So team, while we are on this, I want you to do me a quick favor, please. Not a favor, but basically a simple instruction request for you. Log in to the QTP, the access folder that I've given to each of you. If you've not got it, team, please contact me right away. I rather send an email, you'll get the access. QTP recorded topics. In this, there are few topics I want you to watch, please, before we get into those areas. First, sort them by name in ascending order. That's the first thing I'll do. Skip this VBScript basics, actually. Let's go to a different view. And out here, I have playlist 3. Excel automation. There you go. VBScript basic functions 1, functions 2, and Excel 3. Okay. These 3 videos, please. The 03 playlist, the videos that start with 03, please complete these, because that will let us take what you have learned here and apply it. I'll still give you the overview how it works, but the details of how functions are, what is the differences in Excel read and write are explained in these videos. Try and watch them at the earliest. Today is Tuesday, so if you can watch them by Friday, great. Otherwise, I'll still give you an overview. You can go back and review it, and Monday you should be ready with it. But try and do it by Friday, please. QTP which I installed trial version. Shailaja, send an email to techhelp@itelearn.com, please. All right, team, thank you so much. We'll see you back tomorrow then. Take care and bye for now. Thank you, everyone. Bye.